Okay, welcome everyone. Today's topic is multifamily and apartment investing. To be honest with you, about, I would say, two and a half years ago, my heart was in multifamily, okay? And we've been focusing primarily in single family homes, and I'm gonna tell you why. But guess what? To be honest, my heart is still in multifamily, and I'm going to tell you why. There are so many really important things for you to know and to learn about multifamily because it's extremely powerful, and I'm going to show it to you tonight. Okay, so this is what we're going to do tonight. Let's dive into it. The first thing that I want to show you is the difference, right? What between single and multi units. So this is a single family home. We own that property that's in Streamwood, and then multi-unit, okay? So we own these three buildings. From left to right, that's a 3-flat in Wheaton, and then the next one on the right is a 4-flat in Elgin, and the one just below was a recent acquisition in Westchester. It's a 3-flat, okay? So what I want to make sure that you understand the difference between them and which way should you go and why, okay? So let's go ahead and start with the differences. Okay, affordability. Obviously, as you can imagine, single family is more affordable. As I've told you before, the rule of thumb is for you to buy a single family home under $175,000. Well, let me tell you, multi-unit, it's gonna be a lot more expensive, okay? Obviously, because you have more units in the building. Let me give an example. The later acquisition in Westchester, we bought it for $175,000, okay? But you can imagine how much work it required, okay? It needed at least 170, 180 in rehab. So it was just a huge project. Okay, but I'm gonna show you some pictures in just a minute. But when it comes to affordability, that is the reason why most people focus on single family homes because they're just cheaper, okay, by default. You can get cheap multi-units, but guess what? They're gonna be in really bad neighborhoods, and they're gonna require a ton of work, okay? So now, next. Appreciation. Which one is going to appreciate better, higher? You guessed it right. Single family homes are going to appreciate faster, better. Now you might wonder why. Because that's one of the asset types that households are looking for. There's a greater demand for it. So it's supply and demand, right? That is why single family homes will appreciate higher over time, okay? Compared to multi-units. Which one will get you the better tenant? Single family homes, okay? Single family homes will usually get you the better tenants, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because typically the rents for a single family home are gonna be greater than for a condo in a multi-unit. So you're gonna be getting tenants that have higher FICO scores, better income, more responsible, and you're gonna have less turnover, okay? Compared to multi-units, okay? You're gonna have more turnover. You might not get the best tenants, although we've been very fortunate, especially in the building on the right. In Elgin, tenants have been super stable. And then in Wheaton, we just had somebody moved a year ago. And then we rented already 2 units. We still need to rent 1 more in Westchester. But overall, you're gonna get better tenants in single family homes. So for instance, the property on the left in Streamwood, so the rehab was complete, right? Top to bottom. So in this case, that particular property, we chose not to give it to a property management company. Why? Because it's pretty much from the inside and outside brand new. So the repair items, issues, it's going to be so much less that we decided just to save on the property management. Whereas multi-units, it's like a must, okay? I don't want to hear from tenants in the middle of the night. I want to make sure that they reach out to the property management, and the property management is going to dispatch the appropriate contractor, okay? That's just a tip of advice. But overall, multi-unit, you're going to have more turnover, and then tenants are going to be better in single-family homes. Now, when it comes to exit strategies, in real estate, you have 3 exit strategies. You either wholesale, flip, or buy and hold. Well, you're going to have better options when it comes to wholesaling and flipping a single family home than a multi-unit. So multi-units tend to stay on the market a little bit longer. Why? Because the demand for them is not as high as for single family homes. And the reason why is because the barrier of entry, so it requires more capital investment to get into multi-units. That is why trying to do a flip in a multi-unit, it's a little bit more challenging, or even a wholesale. Okay, wholesaling a multi-unit is a little bit more challenging. In fact, the one that we got in Westchester came from a wholesaler, which happens to be a DealVault member. So figure that out. So yeah, for sure, you're going to have better exit strategies in single family homes. And now, rental income. This is the main reason why most people favor multi-units. Rental income is way better in multi-units, okay? Not only are you going to get more cash flow in the overall property, but you're going to sort of diversify, okay? Because think about this. If you have a vacancy in one of the multi-units, it's going to hurt, but it's just going to be a pinch. Maybe it's going to be 33% or 25% of your overall rental income versus 100% of a single family home that it's maybe 15, 16, 1700 versus rents below 1600. Although the ones in Wheaton, they're pretty high. They're in the 1550. Elgin, the rents are about, those are 2 bedrooms. They're about between 1,000 to 1,100. Westchester, they're huge units, 2 bedrooms. They're going for 1,500. Okay, so, but when you have multiple units, it just helps, right? You sort of diversify your risk. But rental income is going to be way better in multi-units, and we're going to go over some of the examples. Vacancy, I just covered that. So it's way better in multi-units. So now, if you decide to get into the multi-unit, we're going to be just covering residential multi-unit. So what does that mean? Up to 4 units is considered residential. Why do we stick to properties that are residential, but at the same time multi-unit up to 4 units? Because of funding, okay? We can still use the same asset-based lenders from single-family homes. It's still the same strategy when it comes to buying them. However, if you start going 5 units and up, it's a different ballgame because it's considered commercial, okay? When it comes to commercial, then the requirements for funding, they're completely different. So you're gonna need to come up with at least, now with the crisis, 30–40% down payment. So it's very hard to get into commercial multi-unit, especially now because the commercial space in real estate has been hit the hardest right now with the crisis. Why? A lot of businesses going out of business. So it's going to be a little bit more challenging to get into 5 and up, okay? But if you're thinking about doing multi-unit, stick to 2 to 4 flats. That's going to be by far your best bet, okay? Now, when you think about multi-unit, you're going to need to be a little bit more sophisticated when it comes to the analysis of the deal, okay? And I'm going to go over the analysis step by step, and then some of the financial metrics that you really need to know like the back of your hand, okay? That they're not so critical for single family home, but for multi-unit, they are just essential. If you make a mistake with multi-unit, you can lose your shirt. Why? Because it just maximizes the risk and the loss. Okay, so you've got to be very, very careful. But what I'm about to give you tonight is just the secrets, the basic information you need to analyze a deal in minutes. Okay, we can analyze a deal for single family home in seconds. Here it's going to take minutes. Okay, but I'm just going to give you the shortcuts and the things that you need to focus on to analyze a deal. So I'm going to give you examples, and then we're going to go over a case study on those two multi-units on top, Wheaton and Elgin. Okay, we're going to analyze them, and then I'm going to ask you questions as to what your opinions are on it. Okay, and then we're going to be answering questions as we go along. In a single family, if they can afford to rent, why would they not buy? Okay, so that's a good question. So, and I've asked myself these questions. So if the rent is 16, 17, 1800, why do people rent instead of buying, right? Because renting is like putting money in the wastebasket. Well, I asked myself the same question and I figured it out. The reason why is because they just don't want the hassle of ownership. Because when you own the property, guess what? You have to take care of the maintenance. You have to take care of the upkeep of the property. So many people, they just want to, they don't want to deal with the hassle of it. Plus, they're not financially savvy, okay? And then some people, even if they have very strong income, guess what? Their credit is not the best. They might have gone through bankruptcy in the past, so they cannot get a loan. That is why their only option is to rent, and they can afford to rent a nice home. But overall, it's because they don't have that financial knowledge of the benefits of ownership, okay? And then some people, they just want to test out some neighborhoods, right? I want to be here for just while my kids are in college. So they don't want to get into buying the property, be there for a few years, 3-4 years, and then selling the home. They don't want the hassle. That is why they prefer to rent. And rent could eventually be a cheaper way to test out an area, right? So that's the reason why, Debbie. So now, guys, let's dive into it, okay? I'm gonna just give you really cool stuff. I'm super excited. So terms, this is what you really need to understand to analyze multi-unit, okay? So the first term that you need to understand is net operating income. So how do you, what's net operating income? So it's pretty much your rental income minus your operating expenses without taking into account your mortgage payment, okay? Or debt service. So only your income minus your property taxes, vacancy, insurance, utilities, and so forth, okay? So that is the net operating income. So that's the first metric that you need to understand. The second one is cash flow, okay? So what's the cash flow on a multi-unit? Very simple. It's your net operating income, which is your rental income, minus all your operating expenses, what it takes to run the property, minus your mortgage payment or debt service, okay? So that is your cash flow. Next, cash on cash return. So you're gonna hear these from commercial investors, but it is so critical for multi-units. What's the cash on cash, right? So the way to compute this is your yearly cash flow divided by your down payment, okay? So however much you make on a yearly basis divided by how much you put down to buy the property, okay? So those are primarily the three main ratios that you need to understand. And then we have one more, which is, I would say, the most important, cap rate, okay? And that is the net operating income divided by the purchase price, okay? So we're gonna go over some examples so that you can fully understand where each of these numbers fall into the picture, okay? So let's go ahead and start with the cap rate, okay? So we know the value, which is the net operating income divided by the purchase price. That's going to give you your cap rate. So let me just give an example. If your net operating income, meaning your rental income minus your operating expenses without the mortgage, is going to be $50,000 on a yearly basis divided by the purchase price. If it's 1 million, then the cap rate is 5%. And we're going to be talking about what the cap rate is, right? So what's a 5% cap rate? What's a 10% cap rate? What's a 1% cap rate? What does that all mean? We're going to cover that in just a second. Okay, I just want to make sure that you understand the formula. Okay, so in this case, you may not have the value of the building, but you will for sure know the cap rate. So this is how most commercial brokers and commercial investors come up with the market value for a multi-unit. So they're going to take the net operating income, divide that by the cap rate, and that's what's going to give them the purchase price. Okay. Now, I want you to keep in mind that we keep using the net operating income, which is the rental income minus the operating expenses. Keep that in mind because NOI is just going to be so critical for us to increase, okay? Meaning increase the rents. And I'm going to tell you why in just a second coming up. So the example here is the net operating income is $50,000 and the cap rate is 5%. So we come up with the same market value, 1 million. Okay, so now let's go over the building classification when it comes to cap rates in different area types. So I just want to give you a brief overview that we already talked about A areas being the best, B, the bread and butter, C, the more challenging, D, the war zone. Okay, so guess what? Each area type has a cap rate. Okay, so right now we're just going to be considering these 4 area types. So what are the cap rates? I do want to make sure that you take a picture of this slide. Okay, I want to make sure that you have it on your cell phone. Take a picture of this slide because these are going to be so critical for you to understand and when we analyze more deals. Okay, so cap rates in very desirable areas like Wilmette, Norbrook, Glenview, all these very expensive areas, guess what? Your cap rates are going to be very, very low. So think about the cap rate as your return on investment, okay? So bread and butter areas, it's a little bit higher. And then when you go to challenging and D areas, it just goes way higher. So what it means is if you're going to be willing to take the risk of investing in a, let's say, D area, guess what? You better expect a high or higher return on investment. That is why the cap rates in DC areas should be a lot higher, okay? So please take a second just to capture these because these are the cap rates for the Illinois market in multi-units, okay? Another question is, where can you get decent mortgage rates now for multi-family? So the rates are historically low right now, but for multi-unit, they're gonna be even higher. So right now, let me tell you, for a single family home, owner occupied, they can get 3.5 interest rate. But for multi-unit, it's going to be way higher. You're going to add at least 2 more points. So it's going to be 5.5 or so, even if the rates are very low because of the risk. Okay. So now you took a picture of this. Perfect. Now let's go to the next slide. Right here. So this is what your objective should be. Okay. When you think about multi-unit, you need to buy an fixer-upper building in an okay or good area. Okay, so that is the key. You've got to focus on the location. So my advice is that you focus on buying multi-units in C plus, B, and A market. Okay, try to stay away from D areas. Okay, and then over time, you're gonna put in some money so that you increase the value of the building. Okay, so fixer upper in great area. So now let's go over an example. Okay, so in this case, we're gonna take an example of 50, a 10 unit building, okay? So in this case, if you were to raise the rent just by $50 in a 10 unit building, okay? So you're gonna be collecting 500 more in rent per month, okay? I just want you to see the power, because this is the ultimate objective when you get into multi-unit. You've gotta increase the rents on a yearly basis, okay? Versus single family homes. For single family homes, ideally you wanna lock them in into a 2-year lease, but for multi-unit, we only do yearly leases. Why? Because we wanna raise the rent on a yearly basis, even if it's $10, $20, $30. Obviously, right now, due to the crisis, we're making an exception. So the rents that are due for renewal, they're staying the same, just to help our tenants, okay? So now, we're making 500 a month, or on a yearly basis, 6,000. Now, based on the previous example, you're gonna see the impact of it. So you're gonna add 6,000 to your NOI, right? Just by increasing the rent by $50 on a 10 unit building, okay? So see what this is gonna do to the market value of the property. It's just gonna be huge. See? And I'm gonna show you here in numbers, okay? So in this case, remember, the NOI used to be 50,000. Now we raised the rents by $50, 10 units. So we increased the yearly NOI to 56,000. And we're still gonna divide these by the same cap rate, 5%. So guess what the value of the building will be? The value of the building will be 120,000 more. Can you imagine? That is the power of multi-unit, okay? This is the power that your net worth can skyrocket with multi-unit just by increasing your yearly NOI or increasing your rents per unit. It's just an incredible, powerful tool. By increasing the rents, you're gonna increase the market value of your property. Okay, so now let's go over the case study. This is the building in Wheaton. It's a 3 unit. Okay, so the purchase price was $400. Down payment, believe it or not, was $10,000. And I'm gonna tell you the secret how we did it. So we have 2 loans on the building. We have the main loan or the principal loan, and then we took a HELOC. Home equity line of credit for 15%. So we ended up putting only 5% to purchase a 3 unit building. So this is one of the greatest things when you focus on 2 to 4 units, okay? Because it's still residential. So you can still take advantage of all the residential loan programs. So in this case, for multi-unit, we were able to take a HELOC just to minimize the down payment, right? So now let's go over the numbers. So the mortgage for both the principal plus the HELOC is $37,000 or so a year, okay? Now the gross income is $50,000 a year for all 3 units. Now, the operating expenses, that's also one of the differences between single family homes and multi-unit, that we're gonna need to pay for common utilities, such as water, common electric, and garbage disposal. That's how much we pay in terms of utilities for this building. Whereas a single family home, guess what? We let the tenant pay for all the utilities. That includes water, obviously electric, gas, lawn care, snow removal, the whole 9 yards. Well, with multi-unit, you can't do that, okay? You've got to pay for water for sure, you have the halls, front and back, common electric, and then you have a dumpster, right? So that is why you're going to incur more operating expenses. So the yearly operating expenses are $10,000. Now, before I show you the NOI, can somebody tell me what the NOI is? I want to make sure that you are focusing on the numbers. What's the NOI? So remember, it's the income minus the operating expenses without taking into account the mortgage. So can somebody tell me via the chat what that is? Okay, perfect. So somebody told me that the NOI is 40,000 exactly. So very simple. So we're taking the yearly income minus the yearly operating expenses. That's it. So the net operating income is 40,000. Now next, cash flow. So now for the cash flow, we're going to need to take into account the net operating income minus the mortgage payment. So the positive cash flow on this property is only 2.5. That's it. Not great, not great, but hold off. Let me show you. Cash on cash return, 23. Why? How are we going to come up with the cash on cash? Remember, it's the cash flow, which is 2,500 divided by the down payment. So the down payment was only 10,000 on this deal. So your cash on cash return is huge. Does that make sense, friends? It's like we got a free property. Does that make sense? I mean, this is just an incredible tool to build net worth, okay? Because when you look at properties, you want to have cash on cash of at least 12%, okay? Anything higher than that, it's just a great deal, okay? Just make a note of that. Cash on cash should be 12 and up, okay? In this case, since we put so little down, the cash on cash is just huge, right? Despite the fact that the positive cash flow is little on this property after all the expenses. So now let's take the cap rate. What is the cap rate on this? 10%. So how did we come up with the cap rate? So we're taking the net operating income divided by the purchase price. So we paid 400,000, right? So we're going to take the 40,000 for net operating income, divide that by 400,000. So the cap rate is 10, which is huge, right? So just look at those two indicators. When you talk to a commercial investor, broker, they're going to say, what's the cap rate? Okay, now Wheaton, it's a B plus, A minus area. So when you buy multi-units, people are going to be expecting, remember, if I go back to the cap rates for A areas, guess what's going to be? It's going to be very low. Remember, even if it's a B area, you should expect to get cap rates of 4.5, 5. That's pretty much it. For a B area, we're getting a 10% cap rate, which is like the return on investment for a D area, but it's in a B area. So that's exactly what you want, okay? You want to invest or buy a multi-unit in a better area, and overall, over time, you're gonna add value to it. So these are the two indicators that are so critical, cash on cash and cap rate, okay? So far, I mean, this is what we look at, cap rate and cash on cash. And then let's look at the second building, okay? So the one in Elgin, we bought it for $372. Down payment, we used the same creative financing strategy. So we use the principal, 80%, and then the 20%, we only put 5%. Why? Because we took a HELOC, home equity line of credit. So we ended up paying only $10,000, and we're gonna go through the same exercise. So the yearly mortgage payment is $35,000, gross income 47. So look at this. So if I show you the gross income on a 3 flat is 50,000. A 4 flat is almost about the same, even though these are only 2 bedrooms. Does that make sense? So the more units, the better, even though they're smaller. So these are 4 two-bedroom units. And then the operating expenses, again, we pay for water, common electric, and that's it, okay? So let's continue looking at the NOI, net operating income. So we're gonna take the gross income, 47, minus the operating expenses, 9,000. So that gives us 38. Now the next step is cash flow. What's the cash flow? Again, it's very little, but wait until you see the next numbers, cash on cash and the cap rate. So in here, before I go too fast, the cash flow again is the net operating income minus the mortgage payment. So it's 2.5 yearly. Now cash on cash is exponential. Okay, why? Because we had very little money down. So we're gonna divide the cash flow 2.5 by the down payment. And then given those numbers, we're gonna compute the cap rate. So again, Elgin, this is east side of Elgin, so it's C plus B minus area, okay? So cap rate 10.2, that's huge, right? So this is how you analyze multi-units. All you need to know is the net operating income, cash flow, cash on cash, and your cap rate. So cap rate of 10.2 in a C area, it's unheard of, okay? I mean, it is just great. Even though your cash flow is not huge, you put very little money down. And guess what? So over time, these properties are gonna appreciate, so you're building a great net worth with multi-unit. Are there any questions on the line? Now, somebody's, what kind of cap rate should we target? So the cap rate is gonna be based on the area. So if you're gonna be focusing on really nice areas, you should expect cap rates below 5%. If you're gonna stick in the bread and butter C areas, I would say 6 to 7%, max 8 cap rate. So that is why these were incredible investments, because they're in BC areas with a cap rate of 10%. Usually you're gonna get these type of cap rates in really bad neighborhoods, okay? So if you can get these cap rates in better neighborhoods, that means that the property value is just gonna continue to go up. So that is why if we continue to increase rents on a yearly basis, the value of the building is just gonna skyrocket. So that is one of the type of assets that I truly like, because the power of net worth increase is just incredible. But the key difference is to use creative financing to put as little money down as possible, because if you were to put 20, 30%, this would totally kill the numbers, right? Now, is there another question? What kind of cap rate? So yeah, you should target about 8% cap rate in a BC area, ideally. Exactly. So you just don't want to pick any area. You want to focus on primarily B areas, BA areas, or C plus areas. Stay away from C minus D areas, okay? Because you're going to have a lot of challenges with those buildings, especially getting collectible tenants, okay? Now, another question is, who are your lenders? Do they lend to LLCs? Yeah, absolutely. So our lenders are National Mortgage for the one in Elgin, and for the one in Wheaton is, Ditec. Ditec is for Wheaton, and National Mortgage is for Elgin, okay? And the HELOC is from SLS, okay? So those are the lenders. SLS for the HELOCs, and then for the main loan, you have Ditec. Ditec is just a huge company, and National Mortgage, okay, is for the one in Elgin. Okay, so lending sources, yeah, of course, that's not a problem. C-class is more like a 9 cap. So Terry's saying that a C-class area is more like a 9 cap, okay? Yeah, D areas, so that's a good point. There are some pockets in some areas, but typically once you start getting into the D areas, you want to get more than 10% for sure, cap rate. Now, what was the interest rate again? Oh, so the interest rate that we have on the HELOC is, I think it's close to 7%, the interest rate on the HELOC. The interest rate on the main loan is very, very low. It's like 4.5. I mean, it's super, super low. Okay, the HELOC is a little bit higher. It's like 7% HELOC, but we're just leveraging, right, from other people's money, and then it cash flows. So pretty much the property is paying for itself. We're increasing our net worth, and then the cap rate and cash on cash is just huge for these two buildings, okay? Now, another question is, does DealVault have 6+ apartment buildings? No, we just specialize in residential, so 2 to 4. You can search 2 to 4 buildings. Do I have a separate HELOC on each building? Absolutely. So we use SLS for the HELOC on both buildings. And then SLS stands for Specialized Loan Services. They gave us the HELOCs, and then Ditech is just a huge, and then National Mortgage is another big lender. So we were able to combine, that's a creative financing strategy. And then for multi-unit, let me give you some of the secrets. You have more options for creative financing. So you have seller financing. So that means that HELOC, oh, somebody is asking about HELOC. HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit, okay? Home Equity Line of Credit. That's what it stands for, okay? Now, let me tell you, when we bought the buildings, we had to claim them as our primary residence. That is why we were able to get the HELOC plus the jumbo loan together, okay? But after 6 months, we were able to just make it as an investment property. But the condition was for 6 months, it needed to be sort of like our primary residence, okay? It was just on paper. We never lived in those buildings, nor do we plan to live in those buildings, okay? Now, another question is, do you have a separate HELOC? Yes, for each building. And then is there a way to do non-recourse loans, not personally guaranteed? Absolutely, absolutely. But that depends on the lender. And nowadays, you know, with the crisis, we're going through many changes, right, with lenders. Another question is the home line of credit is the HELOC. Okay, so HELOC, home equity line of credit. I hope I answered all your questions. So if you think about multi-units, it's just a great investment. And what many investors do is that they start with 2 flats or 3 flats, they live in one, and then they rent out the other one. So the numbers work just amazing. So in fact, I'm gonna show you, I pulled that up on the MLS. So this is the property, the latest acquisition in Westchester. So many of you went to see this property a few months ago, so it's totally rehabbed. So this is what it looks like today. So the bathrooms, everything is new. The flooring, the kitchen new, everything is absolutely brand new. It even has a garage. So we're trying to rent the last unit, but pretty much everything was done in this building, okay? Windows, roof, electric, plumbing, HVAC, flooring, kitchens, bathrooms, you name it, the whole 9 yards. Even obviously appliances, everything is brand new on the building. So it was very much neglected, but you know, it was just a great deal, right? Westchester is B- area. So we don't have the yearly expenses yet or the yearly income. Otherwise, we could go through the same exercise. That is why we have a record track for the other 2 buildings. That is why I just wanted to use those as a case study. But this is what the building looks like, the latest acquisition that we got from a DealVault member who happens to be a wholesaler. It was just a great deal for everyone. The wholesaler made, if I'm not mistaken, 20,000. He got it on the contract for 150,000. And what's really amazing, friends, is that this lead came from ChicagoDealVault. Okay, so that was super powerful. So let me show you. Let me log in. So I can do, I'm gonna do a power search. Let me copy paste the address. So I wanna show you how they were able to find these. I cannot copy, I'm just gonna type it in. How they found this deal, 1346 Norfolk. Okay, power search. There's another question. How do you find a good handyman, others to do repairs? Okay, so we have some good contractors that we rely on. That's absolutely one of the biggest headaches for investors, right? Getting great people at a great price to do good quality and stay on their budget. So we've gone through a lot of contractors. We have a couple of people that we really work well with, we trust, and we're making some of them available to you in ChicagoDealVault on the preferred partners. You can find some of those contractors. Another question is, doesn't the cost of the rehab affect? Absolutely right. So in this case, the other buildings that we bought, they were already rented, so we didn't need to do much work. But this building needed a lot of work. So let me just quickly show you. Okay, so this property. So look, there was a balance due on the building for $60,000. Okay. And this building is worth about, right now, the way it is, about $450. So guess what? Our DealVault member got it on the contract for about $155. Okay. So before it went to the judicial auction, we had to close on the building. So the wholesaler or DealVault member wholesaled these to us for $175. So he made $20,000. Okay. But still, we got it for a great deal, $175, and the ARV is $450. Obviously, it was a huge gut rehab project. Okay, so I don't advise you to take a gut rehab 3-unit building. That's just way too much work unless you're in the construction business, right? Or you have great contractors. So yeah, just be cautious of these type of deals because you can lose your shirt. Another question is, Hinsdale rental, do you pay what they ask for? Adrian, I don't understand the question. So another is, does the strategy work on multi-units? Absolutely. What that means is you buy, rehab, rent, and repeat. Okay, so absolutely you can do that. And we've done that in all the buildings because you want to add value to the buildings so that you increase the market value of the building should you decide to sell it. But if you have a cash flowing building, why would you want to sell it? If you want to tap into the equity, all you need to do is refinance, right? You don't want to sell the building because you're going to trigger a tax event. You're going to be taxed on the net profit. So instead, just refinance, and then you don't have to pay any taxes when you refinance, okay? But I just wanted to show you the history on this building. And then I want to answer more questions that you may have on the analysis for multi-unit. So it's not a question, Hugo. It was meant for someone else asking a question. It is an answer as well as a fact. Oh, okay. So Hinsdale rental, you pay what they ask for. Oh, okay, in Hinsdale. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Hinsdale, Hinsdale, it's an A area, right? So absolutely, A areas. You have very little leverage. Another question. Are there any other questions on the line? I just want to make sure that we recap what we went over because this is so critical. If you're thinking about multi-unit, believe me, it's just an incredible investment. And that's where my heart is in multi-units. I just love them, right? Because of the cash flow, the flexibility when it comes to diversifying, right? So here, let's just quickly summarize what we talked about. These are the 4 metrics that you need to understand. Operating income, very easy. Income minus expenses without taking into account the mortgage. Your cash flow, it's going to be your NOI minus your mortgage payments, your cash on cash. This is huge, okay? So you're going to take your cash flow divided by your down payment, and then your cap rate, which is your net operating income divided by the purchase price. So the higher the cap rate, the worse the neighborhood is, okay? When you're in a really nice neighborhood, the cap rates are gonna be so low. So this is just an example of what the numbers are like. So these are some of the cap rates. When you are in the area, you should expect cap rates 7, 9, and up, right? Because your risk is higher, therefore you need to be compensated for it. But when you're in a nice area, it's gonna be low. So ideally, you wanna buy buildings in C plus, B minus, A areas, right? That need some work so that you can add value over time and then obviously increase the cap rate, which is what we did in the other 2 buildings. Especially the key is to have very little money down on the property, okay? Another question is, can you recap on how you made the down payment and HELOC work for the deposit? Sure. So the way you do it is, so let's go back to the example, right? So the question is, we're gonna go back to this example. How did we do it to just put $10,000? So the way to do that is you get a jumbo loan, right? Jumbo loan that is primarily the principal loan, for 80% of the purchase price. So 80% of the purchase price is $320,000, right? So technically, you are supposed to put 20% down on this deal. 20% down would be $80,000. That's way too much money. For us to use other people's money, then we said, this is gonna be our primary residence. I want to put as little money as possible. So then we reach out to SLS. SLS specializes in home equity line of credit. Okay, so we said we have this building that we're interested in. It's going to be our primary residence. We just want to put as little money as possible. So they said, fine. They did an appraisal. It appraised for over, I think it was 430, 450 as is value. So right off the bat, we were buying this with equity. And then they said, sure, we can give you 15%. Loan on the equity. So all we needed to put down is technically 5%. Plus we got some credits for taxes. So we ended up paying only $10,000. So that was just huge, right? Because with $10,000, I mean, you can hardly buy a single family home for $150,000, right? So let alone a multi-unit. So that was just a creative financing way. When you pair up your big or principal loan, 80%, that's going to be 80%. And then you use a HELOC, home equity line of credit. They can give you up to 15%. And then you need to put down 5%, which is, it's just amazing, right? But the key is that this is considered residential, okay? Because it's less than 5 units. Anytime that you start going 5 and up, it's commercial. So you won't be able to use the same strategies when it comes to funding. So when it comes to funding, you can use, as I said before, seller financing. If the seller has a lot of equity, they can carry the note and you just pay the seller, right? So you don't need to go out and look for a loan. So the seller can finance the deal. Another way is to do sort of like a master lease. You take over everything, the rents, the expenses, the management of the building, and then in a given term, you can buy the building, right? But you're not technically the owner, but you're managing the owner, and then you make an agreement to pay the owner a certain return on their investment or certain rents on the units. So that's another creative way of doing it and putting very little money down on multi-units. But the key, friends, is that you should for sure try to pursue, if you're starting and this is going to be your first multi-unit, you can start with 2-3 units. Let me tell you, the more units, the better the cash flow. Okay, that's just by default. Even if there are smaller units, the more units, the better the cash flow. Ideally, you have 3 bedrooms. The one in Elgin is they're all 2 bedrooms because you have a cap on the rent, right? But 3 bedrooms, we're renting the 3 bedrooms for $1,550 in Wheaton, $1,600, and the rehab on those buildings are just it's not brand new. I mean, it still needs updating, but we're still commanding very high rents because Wheaton it's A-, B+ area. Okay, so again, remember, location is critical. Now, there's another question here. There are several questions, okay? Would you recommend Lansing for multi-unit? Absolutely, because Lansing has great rents. So absolutely for multi-unit, and they're going to be very much affordable. So start looking into 2 to 4 Lansing. Now another question: is it the right time to buy multi, or wait till July? No, absolutely. The sooner that you can get into multi-unit, the better. So right now, funding is going to be, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge because they're going to be asking you for a little bit more requirements. When it comes to FICO scores over 700, you're going to get the better rates. LTV, they're asking for like 65%. So what that means is, let's say the property appraises for after repair value for 400,000, they're going to lend up to 65, 70% on that. So hopefully you're getting the building for, let's say, 300,000. So you still need to look for great deals in good areas. Now, so yeah, in summary, try to get in multi-units as soon as possible. Like we just got into these 3-flat recently in Westchester, right? Because we got it for a great deal in a B- area for 175,000. That is just the price that you pay for a single family home. And it's a 3-unit building, very solid. Many of you went to see that building already. Another question is, can you explain again how to calculate the cap rate? So the cap rate, let me disclose that. It's on the next slide. Okay, right here. Cap rate, you compute that taking the net operating income divided by the purchase price, okay? And you may not have the purchase price, so you might have the net operating income, divide that by the cap rate, and that's gonna give you the market value of the building. So the cap rate and cash on cash, these last 2 financial indicators are key. Those are the most important, okay? When you look at a multi-unit, the first thing that you need to be thinking is, what's gonna be my cap rate? And remember, you should target 8 and up, okay? But that's also gonna be driven by the location. So if you go into a very nice location, your cap rate might not be as high, okay? And the second thing is your cash on cash. That's so critical, even for single family homes, which means the less money that you have stuck in the property, the higher your cash on cash return is. What it means is, let's say you put $1,000 in, and then you're gonna be collecting $2,000 a year. So it's just like a no-brainer. And on top of that, on top of the positive cash flow, you end up with a great building, right? That over time, it will increase in value, increase your net worth. So by far, it's extremely powerful to get into multi-unit. Another question, owner-occupied, the 203K is the best? Absolutely. Oh, yeah. No wonder. It came from Juan Loya. So absolutely. So owner-occupied, 203K, it's sort of like the FHA loan, but construction loan, okay? Owner-occupied. So Juan, if you want to unmute yourself, and then because you are the expert on these type of loans from Homebridge, you can talk a little bit more about the construction loan 203K owner occupied.
Hugo, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Juan?
So 203K is, again, it's an FHA loan, which gives you owner occupied. So you have to be living there. You're going to live in the property. And it's good for 1 to 4 unit properties. So condo, townhouse, single family home, all the way up to a 4-unit building. And you can get money to buy and fix the property with only 3.5% down of the entire project. So again, if you were purchasing that 4-unit building, let's just say 4-unit building, if you bought it for $400,000, you put $100,000 to fix it up, it's a $500,000 project. 3.5% down is what, 17,500 down, and we can finance 90. Again, what is that? 96.5%.
Absolutely. Thank you, Juan. So, I mean, the question is, when do you need to get into multi-unit? The answer is yesterday. The sooner, the better.
For anybody who does not own a property, the very first acquisition, if they could acquire a 3 to 4 unit as their first primary residence with only 3.5% down, and then you have the rental income basically covering your entire housing expense, you're living for free, and that really gives you the opportunity to start building a portfolio.
Absolutely. Juan, what's been your experience with multi-unit? Because I know you're growing your portfolio tremendously. So what's your experience with multi-unit?
Most of my properties are single families. We do have a 2-unit with a garden, so we've got 3 rented units, but the rest of ours are single families. But now at this point that, I'm more interested in starting to buy multi-unit buildings when possible. It just lets me grow faster and less roofs to manage, but still I can get as many doors under management as possible. But look, if it's a good, I guess here's my take on it. I don't buy good deals, I only buy great deals. And if it's a great deal, I don't care if it's a single family, 2-unit, 4-unit. A great deal's a great deal, and let's figure out how to finance it and get our capital, as much of our capital out of it, and grow our cash flow and grow our net worth.
Awesome. So towards the end, I'm going to give you Juan Loyal's contact information. He's our preferred partner from Homebridge. So I'm going to show you, in fact, I'm going to show it to you right now. So go on their preferred partners and then click on the category lenders right here. So Juan Loya, so you can reach out to him. His cell phone is, oh, it just logged me out. 708. I'll put it on the screen so everyone can see that. So it's 708-945-6424. Juan.loya@homebridge.com. So please feel free to reach out to him. Thank you, Juan, for your input. That is just great about the 203K. It's like an FHA for single family homes, but it's construction loan, multi-unit. So you get to put what, 3.5%?
Only 3.5% down.
That's just huge. Less than what we put down.
Right. And just to give you an idea, right now, we just did a 203K, again, multi-unit 203K owner occupied, and the rate was this week was at 3.5%, all in. 3.5% interest rate. So the down payment and the interest rate happen to be the same.
Whoa, that's just huge. So
right, because it's owner occupied.
Absolutely. So thank you, Juan. So guys, you need to get into multi-unit as soon as possible. The numbers are going to work absolutely the best. In fact, we sold a 2-flat back in December. It was just in a bad neighborhood. That was one of our first deals. We hired the worst rehabber. So it was just something that we needed to get rid of. Again, because we didn't know what we were doing back then. So you don't want to invest in a B area. Contractors didn't even want to go to the property. So we ended up selling that, but it was cash flowing like awesome. We were cash flowing $1,000 a month. It was just a great cash flowing property, but it was just not in the good neighborhood. So
I think another reason, Hugo, to avoid, if you're going to get into multi-unit buildings, Here's my personal feeling is if you're getting into multi-unit buildings, if you're in a really rough neighborhood in a C and a D area, you know, you're dealing with kind of a bottom line is you're dealing with a rough market. And when you
Right.
put, you know, you put too many people together, you're going to start to have some conflicts. That's easier to manage that in single family. So if you're going to be in multi-units, I think you want to be overall in better areas because you're going to be dealing with a higher socioeconomic client.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Thank you, Juan, for your input.
Thank you.
There's another question. What are the risks of saying that it's a primary residence when you don't plan on actually living in it? That was my question to the lender. I said, because the lender, I have really great relationships, and I told him the truth. And he said, okay, Hugo, we're not going to be checking. The only thing is that do make sure that you have a mailbox so that we don't get the return address, right? So if we send out the stuff, just make sure you have a separate mailbox so it doesn't go back to the bank. That's the only thing. They're not going to go check physically to make sure you're living there. So he said it's fine. They won't check. Another question is, does SLS check on you after closing to make sure that you are actually living in the building? No, nobody's going to go and actually check that you're living in there. Okay, so the only way they're going to find out is if they send you something out and it gets returned, right? Like not living there. Is a jumbo and HELOC only used after rehab, or can I use these options to purchase? Absolutely, we use these, Adrian, to purchase the property. Okay, the jumbo loan plus the HELOC, we use that to purchase the property. And then as Juan mentioned, you have the option of the construction loan. If the property needs a lot of work, you can, in fact, get the 203K loan that will just pay for the construction loan. In this case, for the building in Westchester, we use a Harmony lender, so we put 10% down. So 10% of 175 was 17,000 or so, 20,000 to close on the building, but they financed 100% of the rehab, which was over 160,000. So that was huge, right? So now we're gonna refinance just as a single family home. That is why stick to 2 to 4 units, right? Because you're gonna leverage from all these creative financial and funding options that you have for single family homes. So it's absolutely the same thing as if it was a home. The benefit is that you're going to have more cash flow. So actually lenders love multi-units because of the cash flow. Okay, another question. Are there asset-based loans for the building? Absolutely. So we have 22 asset-based lenders that are going to be lending on multi-units. So if you don't have that list, you're a DealVault member, please send us an email to support@ChicagoDealVault.com. We're going to send you the list of the 22 asset-based lenders that they can lend on multi-unit as well. Another question, when you buy multi-units, do you check CoStar report or CBRE, etc., to make buy decisions other than cash on cash or cap rate? Not really. So we run the numbers ourselves, right? Because we know just basic 4 numbers, and you all know now what you need to know to buy a multi-unit. So you don't need an expert broker. Let me tell you, when you do need an expert broker, when you're going to sell the building, okay, you really want somebody who understands what they're doing with multi-unit when you're selling the building. But when you're buying, the only thing that you do need to know is the cap rate for the particular neighborhood. Okay, that is very important. I gave you the cap rate for the area, but obviously every area has pockets. So you really need to know the cap rate like the back of your hand so that you know how much to pay for the building. Because let me just quickly show you. I'm going to pull up the calculator. Because when you're going to buy these buildings, you are going to know the NOI, so calculator. So let me show you how simple it is. So you're going to know the yearly rental income, let's say, is 12,000, just to keep it simple. And the operating expenses are going to be, let's say, 4,000 a year. So my NOI is 12,000 minus 4,000 is 8,000. Okay, 8,000. That's my NOI. So now divide the NOI by the cap rate, and that's going to give you the market value of the building. So the NOI is 8,000 divided by the cap rate. So if the cap rate, you're, let's say, in a B area, it's going to be maybe 6%. So the market value of the building is going to be 133,000. Okay. So that is why it's critical for you to have a very accurate cap rate. So the ones I gave you are at the area level. Just like, let me give you the analogy, Rentometer is going to give you the rents at the area level. But if you want to know the rent at the property level, Zillow is very accurate. It's just the analogy. Okay, you do need to know the cap rate. So for that, reach out to a broker who understands cap rates. Another question is, for FHA 203K equals house hacking? Totally, absolutely. Can you use 203K with a VA loan? That's going to be a question for one lawyer. I'm not sure if you can combine the VA. VA stands for veteran. So I'm not sure if you can combine that. Juan, if you can answer that question. Okay, so the answer is
no.
Okay.
VA is VA, FHA is FHA.
FHA, perfect. Thank you, Juan. Another question is, so with the 203K can only be bought under your name, not under LLC. Is that correct? Juan, could it be under your LLC, or does it have to be under your personal name?
It's a personal name only.
Personal name. Okay. Perfect. And then Debbie, one. Perfect. So reach out to Juan. How long do you have to live in the building once you get the loan? So technically, it's 6 months to 1 year. Now, another question is: did you say a Harmony loan? Oh, Harmony loan or asset based. So they're going to be looking at the asset itself. So we have asset-based lenders. So it's called HARD, H-A-R-D, or asset-based lenders. Okay, they're going to be looking at the deal itself, not so much at your tax return, income, and so forth. Another question is, does 203K require a specific amount to lend versus a HELOC? So the 203, as Juan mentioned, all you need to put down is 3.5%. So it's very little. So it's just a great option to get into multi-unit. Do you have another webinar? And what is it about? Webinar TMW. Oh, I don't know what the TMW stands for, Leah. If you can tell me what the TMW stands for. Debbie, why would someone want a 203K versus a HELOC? Okay, so you cannot just use a HELOC by itself. You need a jumbo plus a HELOC. The advantage of the 203K is that you're getting money for the rehab. That's the big difference. When you use the HELOC plus the jumbo loan, it's just for the purchase, but you're on your own for the rehab. Okay, so if the building requires a lot of work or some work, then you want to use the 203K loan. Okay, it's sort of like an FHA, absolutely FHA for a single family home, but this is a construction loan that applies for a multi-unit. Okay, now do you check T3, T1210 roll from seller? Oh yeah, the rent roll, absolutely. You have to check the rent rolls. You need to get a copy of the leases, absolutely, because you need to verify your total rental income. That's a must. Now, another question is to make sure what the sellers say is true. Absolutely, you need to have a copy of all the leases, security deposits. Now, another one is, do you recommend Section 8? Absolutely, Section 8 is just the way to go. In the 4-unit building, we don't have any Section 8s. In the 3-flat, we have one Section 8. And in the Westchester, we have one Section 8. Okay, so it's the best because you have the rent on time. So we love Section 8. Plus, let me tell you, Section 8, it's a source of income. It's a protected class, so you cannot discriminate against source of income or Section 8, okay? So be aware of that. You cannot reject the Section 8 tenant. You can only discriminate against financials, but not against source of income. So be aware of that. So Section 8 is awesome. They pay on time. Even if the tenant loses their job, the government is going to send you your money, your rent on the 1st. The only thing is that they do yearly inspections, but I like them because that helps with the upkeep of the building and the tenant is happy. The only drawback is that on a yearly basis, it's very hard to get rental increases with Section 8. So once you are with them, the rent is not going to go up significantly. So that's the only drawback. So what we do is we try to maximize their voucher, right, when we first rent out to them. Another question is, recommend Harmony lenders lending in Cook County? Absolutely. Adrian, we have a list of 22 Harmony lenders, asset-based. Send us an email. We're going to send you the list, 22 asset-based lenders. And then, Adrian, yeah, for the purchase, for the rehab, yeah, we have that. In fact, let me see if I can show you what that looks like in here. So here we go. Let me show you what that looks like. Material. Oh, here. Okay, so this is the list. So we have 22. These are all asset-based lenders. So send us an email. We're going to send you a list of the 22 asset-based lenders. They can fund your multi-unit, okay? So they can help you pay for the purchase and the rehab. So that's huge. This is what we use for the Westchester building that required a ton of work, okay? So send us an email. We're going to send you this list. Or is there another question on the line? Let me pull up the chat. Yes, great guys that you are asking so many questions. So yeah, no further questions. That's awesome. So let's just quickly wrap up. I want to show you, if you don't have any further questions, I want to make sure that you fully understand the difference, okay, between single family home and multi-unit. Why use one versus the other one? So this is what you need to look at and understand. Affordability, obviously, single family home. Appreciation, single family home is going to appreciate higher because supply and demand. Tenants, you're going to get better tenants in single family homes. There's a lot more turnover in multi-unit, more exit strategies in single family homes. So it's easier to wholesale a single family home than a multi-unit, okay? Then rental income, by far, multi-unit is going to be the way to go for cash flow. Vacancy, you're going to diversify. So a vacancy in one of the multi-units hurts a lot less than a vacancy in a single family home, okay? And then these are the 4 metrics that you need to understand to evaluate a multi-unit. NOI, that's it. Cash flow is pretty much your NOI minus your mortgage. Cash on cash is huge. Your cash flow, yearly cash flow divided by your down payment and the cap rate, right? So the lower the cap rate, the better the neighborhood. The higher the cap rate, it's not a great neighborhood, okay? So you should target cap rate of 8 and up, okay? And your cash on cash should be 12 and up, okay? Make a note of that. Cash on cash should be 12% and up, and cap rate ideally should be 8 and up. And then you should focus on buying a property in a B minus, B plus, A area, or you can even go as low as C plus, okay? But stay away from C minus because those markets have been hit the hardest with the crisis right now because most white-collar employees have lost their jobs versus, you know, the better areas, they get to work remotely. So stick to BA areas with buildings that require a little bit of work, okay? So yeah, please send us an email to support. I'm going to put in support at ChicagoDealVault.com. wholesale.com. Okay, we'll send you that list. Make sure you take a note of these, and let's continue with what I want to show you next. So what I want to show you next after the case study, make sure that you join our bootcamp. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be May 31st. It's going to be a 4-hour online event. This is what we're going to be covering. We're adding more, okay? Fundamentals. We're going to show you how to set up your business, apply for business credit cards, apply for line of credits. That's just the fundamentals. And then we're going to be talking about wholesaling, okay? Basics, creating your motivated seller list. We have all the leads, marketing strategies. We're going to give you the scripts for calling owners. And in fact, you know, the folder that I have right here, this is everything that we're going to give you. Seller scripts, scope of work, lenders, flip or rent calculator. We have a lot of, we're going to give you all the contracts, by the way. All of these are contracts, scope of work, interviews. We're going to give you live video interviews. We're going to give it all to you on this event. Make sure that you RSVP. Right now, we're at 96 RSVPs. So we're expecting for sure over 100 people. We're going to talk about how to make a successful appointment, the difference between an assignment and a double close, closing practices, and virtual wholesaling. And then we're going to move on into the fix and flips, understanding flip spreads, where are the best flipping markets, overcome the lack of money and credit, right, for flips, how to get them funded, get reliable contractors. That was one of the questions today. The breakdown of the rehabbing process. We're going to give you our rehab cost template and also our scope of work, okay, so that you can come up with accurate scope of works for your projects. We're going to give you some tips to avoid some of the major mistakes investors make. And then rentals, that's my favorite topic. That's what we focus on, how to build $1 million empire. We're going to give you the top rental markets, how to present your deals for funding, recycle the money secrets so you have as little money as possible stuck on the deal, deal automation, how to find hidden deals off market and identify the big margins. And then finally, we're going to cover property management. And we're going to be doing every 18 minutes or so, 2-3 minutes for virtual speed networking amongst each other. So build and meet your next partner. So please RSVP. When you RSVP, if you don't have access to DealVault, we're going to give it to you for free. For the next 30 days, we're going to assign a dedicated VA to help you find off-market deals. We're going to give you the top rental and fleet markets, unlimited training. We're going to give you access to our CRM for the next month. So it's free RSVP. Once we hit the 100, then we're going to start charging 25. Once we get over 100 RSVPs, over 150, they're going to pay $50. So this is how you RSVP. So I'm going to give you the link to RSVP. I'll send it via the chat. So I want to make sure that everyone can RSVP right now. I hope you can hear me now. So free access to DealVault. Okay, now you can hear me. Thank you. So you're going to get a confirmation email to get free access to DealVault. Just fill out this form. Okay. Now for the package right here, you're going to select special Chicago DealVault. I'm going to put it in the package. Select special for the package. Let me put it on the chat right here. Package should be special Chicago DealVault. And then from the promo code, it should be multi-unit. Okay, that's the promo code. Okay, multi-unit. That's the promo code. It could be lowercase, uppercase, multi-unit. So get your Chicago DealVault for free for the next 30 days. Okay. And then those are the promo codes. Make sure that you RSVP, package, special, Chicago Deal Vault, and then promo should be multi-unit. Okay, get your access for free, RSVP, and then tomorrow, don't forget, we're going to do a virtual speed networking event. Make sure you join us. We're going to have you meet every single attendee virtually. You're going to be in breakout rooms. Okay, so I'm going to break you out in rooms of 2, so you're going to be able to exchange information, but we're going to tell you what to exchange, such as counties you are investing, strategies, exit strategies, fix and flip, buy and hold, wholesale. What is it that you're lacking? What is it that you bring to the table? And your contact information. So those are the things that you're going to be sharing with each other. Make sure that you join tomorrow 6:30. David, you're going to get an email throughout like the week of, like the last week for your confirmation, but we have you down. Okay. So package special Chicago Deal Vault. Okay, perfect. Any other questions? So I'm going to be here for the next few minutes. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you learned quite a lot, and please start looking into multi-unit. Now you know how to analyze them. And before I forget, please make sure that you download our Chicago Deal Vault Academy. Okay. How do you download that? Very simple. Just send a text to, here we go. Send a text message to 818 and the keyword Deal Vault. Okay. So go to the Apple Store, or you can go to the Apple Store or Google Play Store, type in Deal Vault, make sure you download it. We have, it's Deal Vault Academy. Okay. So please download it. Debbie, send us an email with or a screenshot of the issue that you have, and we'll be happy to take a look at it. We have over 100 training videos, and they are in a sequential order. Super important. Make sure you download this app, okay? It's priceless. So text 818, the keyword Deal Vault. So thank you everyone for joining today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And Sunday as well, we're going to have another webinar. Sunday, Tuesday, we're running 4 events a week. I want to make sure that you have all the training, all the tools, all the technology, the knowledge this month, okay? So that you're ready to pull the trigger. When everything opens, you're ready. You have lenders, you have deals, you have knowledge, technology, everything. So thank you everyone for joining today.